CIT 1121 Module 2, Submodule 3 and 4. We'll go through these. Command structure. First thing about command structure, we're going to break down the way you're going to go ahead and type your commands in. So they did a nice job on this slide, and you can see they've given you prompt, command, space, and then keyword or argument in it at fourth. So the prompt is, whichever command you're at, wherever your prompt is, that's going to dictate what commands are going to be available at that particular prompt. In this case, we are in user mode because we can see that greater than sign. And one of the commands that's available in user mode is show, and another command that's available in user mode is ping. So those are going to be the keywords that we're going to use. It's going to dictate what the argument is after that. What parameter are we going to set with that? So for instance, with show, there'd be a whole bunch of other things I could type in here, like show run or show IP interfaces. In this case, they're typing in show, and then the argument is IP protocols. Well, IP protocols is a command. It's a valid command, and if you pressed enter after that, it would show you the protocols that are running on this particular device. On the bottom side, after the keyword of ping, it's looking for a valid IPv4 address, which is posted here, and then it will complete the action of pinging a device. So that's the basics into the commands. It is a negative reinforcement operating system. Means that if you type in a command and then you get what you were looking for, or it just goes to another prompt, it means that it did what you asked it to do. If you get a message like a prompting error, it means that you did it incorrectly. So it will let you know when you did something wrong, but it won't prompt you. It doesn't say nice job or anything. If you did something right, it'll just go on to the next line, or it'll show you. In this case, as far as the show goes, it'll give you that what you had asked for. Okay. The next slide gets into just the idea of entering a command like ping or traceroute and what those do. And I think everyone should be somewhat familiar with ping. It's just a utility that we're going to use to check to make sure that devices can communicate with each other. Another thing we can use is a step-based ping, which is traceroute. And in traceroute, it will tell you every time you hop across another router if on the way to that destination. I guess is the best way to put that. So keep that in mind. So no big deal there. iOS help features. Help is a really, really, really important piece of your Cisco iOS. Help can be found by using the question mark. And there's a couple different ways that you can use the question mark. I'll give you an example. If you typed in ping space question mark, as they've done here, let's kind of make this a little bit bigger. This is really too darn small. Ping space question mark, you can put in a word like a domain name. You can put in an IPv4 address. You can put in an IPv6 address, and it would then try and ping those locations. No big deal. So question mark will tell you what the next thing is you can type. If we were to put ping right next to a letter in a command, it would give us all the commands that started with that particular letter. You'll see more of that in the labs. And then over here, it just does a syntax check. This is that negative reinforcement that I was pointing out earlier. So in this case, they put in Ethernet and then, interface, fast Ethernet 01, and it says, hey, by the way, we've put a little caret here, and we get interface. That's cool, but this particular interface evidently isn't on this device. So fast Ethernet is not a recognized command in this particular device. So that's what they're getting into there. So if you get a little warning message or a little error code, it just means that you did it wrong. So not a big deal. It just takes you back to the prompt that you were at previously. You can see here if you put something in incorrectly, like the keyword con. Let's make these a little bit bigger as well. And make this one a little bit bigger also. And we've got conf t, and up here we have con. Now, here's the thing about the iOS, and this is actually really, really cool. You could type in the whole command, right? So in this case, they're looking for a command, and the whole command together is called configure terminal. And you guys don't know that because you haven't done any labs yet, but one of these days you're going to do some labs, and you're going to type in configure terminal, and you'll be like, man, what would be great is if I didn't have to type in all of these letters. And the truth is, you don't have to. For something like configure terminal, there are commands that start with the letters CON. As you can see here, CON, and you get an ambiguous command. But then if you do CON question mark, just as we were talking about in the last slide, it'll show you all the commands that start with CON. So in this case, there are two commands that start with CON, configure and connect. So at this point, if you just typed in CON, the operating system doesn't know if you want to do configure or if you want to do connect. So it errors out. It goes, I don't get it. But if you just typed in CONF, that would be the first four letters. That would be unique to the word configure, and then you could stop typing the additional characters at that point. So when we get down here and we look at CONF space, we've typed in enough to make configure unique, and then T for terminal. T is in this case, we had a space here, we would have T for we could have terminal and memory, and I think that's it. I can't remember what else. But configure T for terminal. T is the terminal is the only command that would start with the letter T. So CONF space T enter will get you to global configuration mode, because that will give you enough of a unique value that the operating system can understand it. It's easy to get to. It's easy. And it's fun to learn and try to shorten commands. So keep that in mind. Other hotkeys, you can just take a look at these. You'll do these in the labs. Tab, backspace, left arrow, right arrow, up arrow, all good stuff. And then here's some more hotkeys. Enter, spacebar for displaying more or next. Control C, Control Z, a couple of things about Control C. If the router's doing something and you're not sure what it's doing and you don't know why, Control C is a really good thing you could use. It'll break the router out of its mode. Control Z will always get you back into privilege mode, take you back to privilege exec no matter where you're at. And then Control Shift 6 is like a more strong option to break more services than just Control C. So if your router's doing something, maybe you put in a debug command, which we haven't talked about, and you try Control C and it doesn't work, do Control and Shift and 6 all at the same time. So Control and Shift and 6, all three. And I give you 3 characters. It's like a chord to make it stop doing whatever it's doing. Okay, so that's kind of a cool command. Let's take a look at. Let's do 2.4 and then we'll take a break and then we'll do the next video. 2.4 basic device configuration. Device names. The name that we're going to use for a device is the host name. It's easy to configure. They do it right here. There are a couple of parameters that go along with it. I don't want that to be too big. So you can see in global config, somebody typed in all of configure terminal, even though in the last slide we told you to just type in CONF space T. But you get the basic idea. It takes you to the same place. Switch config, and then in this case, the keyword is hostname, and then the parameter of what they want to set is SW-floor-1. So when you set the hostname, it happens, once again, it happens immediately in memory, and the device will act on that. The operating system acts on what's in memory, not what's saved. So once it's up and running, you type in, change the name to switch floor 1, changes the name to switch floor 1. Done. It's done right there. Okay. It is not saved yet, but it is going to be functioning. Here's the things that you have to remember about your host names. Number 1, start it with a letter. Number 2, no spaces. Number 3, end it with a letter or a digit. Number 4, use only letters, digits, and dashes. And number 5, use less than 64 characters. If you get a host name that's more than 64 characters, holy cow, that's a long host name. So keep that in mind. Keep those things in mind as far as setting up host names. You will set a host name up on every single device that you configure, because a lot of times you'll configure a lot of devices from the same desk. You could SSH into 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 different devices, and you'll configure each one. If you can't tell which one you're at because the host name prompt is switch on all 10 switches, you could very easily type the wrong command into the wrong switch, or type a command into a switch you didn't intend to put it on, and that will in turn mess up your configuration, make you have to work longer, all kinds of bad things. Password guidelines. Another thing that we want to do is we want to, from a very basic perspective, set some passwords up on our devices. So the passwords that we're going to set up is we're going to set up a password to protect privileged mode. We're going to set up a password to protect console, just accessing from the console. And we're going to set up a password to allow that if you're coming in remotely through Telnet or SSH, you're going to need a password for that as well, and that's called a VTY password. So let's just let's take a look here about setting up our passwords. Now, first couple. This first one here, let's just take a quick look here, is let's see what they've done here. So they've done configure terminal, we're global config, and then they've set up to, and they say line con 0, line console 0. Line console 0 is the actual physical interface on the router or switch that says console. It's an RJ, it's associated with an RJ45 jack, and you plug into it, and that's where you get your console. So if you want to protect that physical jack with a password, this is how you're going to get it done. So line console 0, enter. We're now in config line. At config line, we add two commands. Number one, what password do you want to use? In this case, password Cisco. Very simplistic. We like them that way in the classroom because everyone can guess everyone else's passwords. Second command, keyword login. Login prompts the device to actually prompt for a password. Without the keyword login, the password doesn't do anything. So line console 0, password Cisco, keyword login, type in end. We're done. We just put a password on the console. And you'll see that in the labs, and we'll do those. And when you watch the lab videos, you'll see me go through those. It's pretty easy. Let's look at the second piece here. So the next thing we have here is we're going to protect the privileged mode of the device. So we're in global config right now, and we go and type in configure. We type in config terminal to get into global config, excuse me. And now we're in global config, and now we want to set a password to protect privileged mode. No big deal. We're going to use the command enable and then secret. Now there's also enable password, but enable secret will allow the password to be hashed out or we're not really want to say encrypted, but hashed out in the show command. So it won't show you the password when you do a show running config, or if you wanted to look at your configuration file, you won't be able to see what the password is. It will be a 30-character value instead of the word class, which is the password that they're talking about here. Once again, you're going to do this in the lab, and this is a skill that you're going to need to be able to do for the final exam, okay? Not a big deal there. The last part of passwords that we need to talk about is we're going to talk about the VTY passwords, or the virtual terminal line passwords that that you can set. Now, so if you're going to SSH, or you're going to Telnet, you're not going to Telnet anymore, but you're going to SSH or Telnet into the device, you have to have a password to come in through those data ports. And the place you're going to do that is you're going to set that up with line VTY. It stands for virtual terminal lines. And that's and then there are 16 of them. So you could have 16 connections at the same time. Each line has a numerical value associated. So the first person that would log in remotely through a VTY line would get on line 0. And then the second person that would access would be on line 1. And then the third would be on line 2. So on and so forth. You can go all the way to 15. So you can have 16 people or 16 connections could go into that router at the same time. The second part of this is exactly the same thing as what we saw with console 1 or console 0. Line VTY 0 space 15. I want to do all of them at the same time. So this 0 space 15 is like 0. In any other place, it would be 0-15. This is the range that I want. Is Cisco iOS. You don't use a dash for range. You just put in the first parameter and then the last parameter. So that's what they did here. So it's line VTY 0 space 15, and then enter. You're in line config. Password Cisco. Cisco's the password. And then the keyword login to enable the password prompt. Done. That's it. It's that easy. Let me get down here. And the last couple of things that we have. Oh, banners. Two more things before we finish this section, and that is encrypting those passwords. So if you were to just do a show running config, and you don't use the command service password encryption, all of your passwords sans the enable secret would show up in clear text, which means someone could, type in show run, see your passwords, and then they would get it. They could get into your device remotely. We don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to encrypt those passwords, or we're going to hash them out so that they don't show as what they actually are, right? The way we do that is very simple. It's configure terminal, use the command service password dash encryption. It's that easy. Service password dash encryption, enter, and then when you do a show running config and you want to see what your console password is, guess what? It's hashed out. It doesn't show you that it's actually class, right? Or maybe it was Cisco, I can't remember. And your line VTY, in this case, 0 through 4, the first 5 VTY lines, 5 through 16 are not set up in this case. You cannot see what that password is either. It's just a hashed out value that so you can't just steal the password by looking at it, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. And finally, banners. Banners are something that comes in from a long time ago. And the idea behind the banner was this, is when the internet first started, people sometimes they say the internet's the Wild West or whatever. There are hackers that would say, no one specifically told me not to log into your equipment, not to delete all of your information. So I'm not really at fault. Legally, there's no boundaries. So in the effort to make it more legitimate, banners were created. So you could create a banner that says, hey, hackers, in case you didn't know, what you're doing is illegal, and I don't want you in here, and you can't, let this serve as a warning to you that I don't want you accessing my equipment, okay? So banners are really easy to set up. The main banner that's made it through all this time is called the banner MOTD. MOTD stands for message of the day. And then to set the banner, you use a character, and then you put the banner message in, and then you use that character again. So you can see here, in this case, they used the pound sign, and then they ended with the pound sign. Great. This could be the letter A. But the problem would be is if we waited the letter A, it would just give us to the messa, and then it would the letter A would be considered the end of the message or banner, and then it would be over. So the letter A, not a good solution, but since the pound sign is not in the message or banner, then this is a good solution. So you can use anything you want. Just de facto to the way everyone was trained. We were all trained with the pound sign. You don't have to you can use the at sign, you could use the and sign. You could use a letter that's not even in the message. Who cares? It's just whatever you type in after banner MOTD, whatever you type in there, that's the thing that signals whatever comes after this is the message. And whenever you type that same character again, that is the end of the message. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense.